I would also like to recognize, presenting the Stanley C. Tessa Memorial Award, Reagan and Jillian Tessa, Stan's daughters, Dorothy Tessa, Stan's wife, and Jaden Schneer, Stan's granddaughter. As well, one of our recent graduates, Blake Cronk, class of 13, and Associate at Torrey's, is here to present the Torrey's LLP Award in Business Law and the Just SJD Torrey's Writing Prize. I'm delighted that so many of you could be here this morning for this day of celebration. I expect this morning and this afternoon you will receive lots of good advice on what lies ahead for you in your careers. So I promise not to add to the list, but for one message. You've earned the right to be here. But now, today, with your passage into this great profession, you've assumed a responsibility. Your professional responsibility is something we've talked about a lot the last few years. You have natural talents, and of course now you have an excellent legal education. But you have a responsibility, as I've reminded many of the law classes before you, to use your talents as global citizens for the greater good. Please embrace that message in your local communities, in your places of employment, and with your family and friends. There are limitless ways to make a contribution. If you make time for others, you will have more than enough time for yourself and your career. Now it's my distinct pleasure to introduce Janet Leaper. Janet graduated from Western in 1985, and she tells me this morning that we didn't have this special ceremony back then. Her practice included criminal law and advocacy before administrative tribunals. By 1993, she'd been made an adjudicator for the province of Ontario, serving as a legal member and then as alternate chair of the Ontario Review Board. In 1995, Janet was the second woman to receive certification from the Law Society of Upper Canada as a specialist in criminal law. She now serves as the chair of the Certified Specialist Board, which oversees certification for all lawyers in Ontario. From 2004 to 2007, Janet served as full-time chair of the board of Legal Aid Ontario, and in 2009 was appointed for a 5-year term to act as Integrity Commissioner for the City of Toronto. In that capacity, she provided advice, complaint investigation, and resolution to elected and appointed officials. In 2011, she was elected a bencher of the Law Society of Upper Canada, and I can assure you today there are many very important matters facing the benchers that Janet is well aware of. And in that capacity, she's assumed responsibility for a number of policy and adjudicative discipline matters. Janet was honored for her service to the profession. In 2009, she received the Laura Legge Award from the Law Society of Upper Canada, and in 2013, she received the Lexford Zenith Award given to women leaders in the legal profession. Janet has been very generous with her time with the law school as a guest lecturer and as a distinguished speaker, and we are delighted to have her here with us today. Please join me in welcoming Janet Leaper to address her graduation.
Thank you, Dean Scott, faculty, family, and friends, and joyful graduates. Here you are at the beginning of something, of many things. In his book, Lawyers and Fidelity to Law, Bradley Wendell observes, in the end, being an ethical lawyer means doing well at the craft of lawyering. Craft of lawyering, what is that? Today I want to talk to you a little bit about how the craft emerges from the intersection of values, motivation, and habits, and invite you today to consider how you will prepare yourselves to apply your legal and critical thinking skills in the world. To imagine in this breathing space right here today between student and career, the challenges and how your values will be tested. Preparation. If there was a one-word speech about excellence in the practice of law, preparation would be on the short list. Respected Canadian criminal lawyer Richard Heck has observed that an unprepared lawyer is a person adrift on a sea of chances, and he's right. Early on, when I was a law student, along with my fellow law students, and during our early years at the bar, we were told so much about the value of preparation. And we heard over and over from senior respected lawyers how we had to prepare. It was so important, and we were determined to do it. We assumed that after a number of years, we would get to a magical place where we knew exactly how to take on the files we had, that we wouldn't stress, we wouldn't lose sleep, and we would finally know how to do it. We were so eager to get to that magic point. But the first time that I had an actual real file in front of me with a person depending on me for my legal acumen, I just kept reading and rereading those witness statements and breaking out in a sweat, and I realized, sure, I know it's important to prepare, but what are the steps? What is the formula? How do I organize it? Why did just rereading the file only heighten the feelings of dread and contribute nothing to feeling ready? It was my first confrontation with the reality that you do not pop out the other end of law school a fully formed trial lawyer. The art, the science, the craft of lawyering takes time to develop. And so I learned from each case. I did things that were repetitive, not effective. I had moments of insight, I made mistakes, and had some success. I watched other lawyers, I asked questions, attended advocacy programs, bought legal books. I learned about organizing files into binders, starting from the legal framework, the incredible revealing power of building chronologies to understand facts. I made charts, I taped them up on the walls. And I learned that boredom often meant I just wasn't understanding something. I became persistent and stubborn, politely stubborn, in following up on facts, disclosure, and responses. And I began to realize that in every case, every client has truly unique demands. I listened when experienced lawyers told me they often succeeded by knowing more about the case than anyone else in the courtroom at all times. I learned to consider the motivations of key witnesses, and I visited the scene of the events, even when a visit might not seem to have any role to play in developing my defense, and it always helped. My aphorism from the first client meeting became, the trial starts now. Your career starts now. And these techniques began to work. The extra effort, the imagination required to manage and understand volumes of material paid off. Intuition and confidence in the courtroom became the tip of an iceberg, with hours of unseen effort lurking below the waterline, creating stability and heft. In one lengthy case, my co-counsel and I found ourselves up against a big gun with a reputation for tenacity and years more experience than we had. We knew our clients were getting a bad deal. We believed in them, and we felt a conviction would be a true injustice. We were capital M motivated. And I spent my summer holidays before that trial in a rented schoolhouse on the East Coast with boxes of paper I brought with me, charting out cross-examinations on the chalkboards, while my 6-year-old played over in the corner with some left-behind toys. One piece of advice on that: never ever write a cross-examination on a chalkboard within reach of a bored 6-year-old with access to a chalkbrush. Anyway, we brought a motion to stay the proceedings. We began to call the prosecution as our witnesses to prove it. And we started to gain traction. We knew our case, we had deciphered the boxes of material, and we could articulate exactly where we were going. And early on, as we were methodically laying the foundation for our final argument, our adversary jumped up with an indignant, dramatic objection, made to interrupt our flow and throw us off. It was a tactic, it was gamesmanship. And we were momentarily thrown off. As Mike Tyson says, everybody's got a plan till they get hit. We were momentarily there. Our brains were just saying, it's on. And we realized we could be thrown off and lose. This was a pivotal moment. Or we could use the objection as a springboard to succeed. So we took 3 steps. First, we slowed down our thinking and our speaking. Next, we asked the witness to be excused, which if you've ever been in a trial court, you realize it takes a bit of time for a person to get out from behind the box, walk out, close the door. So we had a bit of time. And it also underlined, we're about to say something important that should not be heard by the witness. Then we used our clear and prepared theory of our motion to state exactly where we were going, and we delivered a mini closing to explain the relevance and respond to the objection. We won the objection, but then it happened again. Another tactical objection. Here we go again. Witness out, explain the argument, another mini final submission with up-to-the-minute reference to the evidence, ending with why we were leading it. We won it again. The objection slowed to a trickle and then stopped. And it all began with methodical preparation. Along the way, during our quest to learn how to prepare effectively, a number of us happily attended the modestly titled Ultimate Cross-Examination Conference, in Chicago. We heard an excellent presentation from trial lawyers Roger Dodd and Larry Posner, who presented their methods and sold their book on the science of cross-examination. They described how to break open a case, divide it into its component parts, create chapters, and deliver the cross. They talked about how to cross-examine a crime witness, a witness who is evasive or a complete liar. And they broke down and analyzed the most basic of questions, how to effectively pose a leading question. Now this was learning to prepare, and it worked. First time I used these methods in a case, I got every answer I needed, smooth, logically, no drama. As I sat down, I heard the Crown grumble under her breath, well, that witness would have said anything. It may have looked like that, but it took hours of preparation and careful thought. And these techniques are not secret. They're available to all of you. Yet judges still complain there are lawyers in court who cannot ask a question properly, who have not learned or cared enough to structure cross-examinations built on asking one fact per question, sequenced in a way that drives to the logical conclusion the lawyer needs. And the other thing I hear judges say often is that when a skilled and prepared lawyer appears before them, it is still a standout, because there are some in our profession who have become tired or cynical or unhappy or not caring, not able to do the work, not knowing their case or their client. So 29 years later, since my call to the bar, I now know that there is no magic, all figured out stage with a career in law. And it's both good news and bad news for all of you, because the fundamental truth about practice is this: when you get good at this work, the problems just get harder. The mountains get higher, and as you climb one and you reach the summit exhausted, you get a little breather, but then a higher range comes into view. And if you are motivated by challenge, it's a wonderful thing, because the work can be so difficult, and there's more than what you bring to the game that's required. So here I'm talking about relationships. If you climb mountains for a living, you need good companions. These are the people you call at night when you're afraid you made a bad mistake, when people will come to court and watch what's happening or sit second chair on a tough file. In a profession where today's adversary is tomorrow's chambermaid or your trial judge in 5 or 10 years, fight hard, but always respect the person, even when their stress levels might lead them to treat you with disrespect. If you keep yourself even, it will pay off. Maybe not that day or that week, but someday. Even when, or especially when, someone is ignoring you, being rude or aggressive. Do your work with a smile on your face, and someday, years later, you will learn why this is good advice. Receive an abrupt email, pick up the phone. Don't escalate. Be the coolant, not the accelerant. Remember that lawyer with the objections we talked about? We were polite and friendly with him outside court. We bought his witnesses coffee. And we used some of the colorful insults we overheard from the witnesses as a signal that maybe we were getting somewhere, rather than an invitation to get personal. We stayed focused, and at the end of the case, we all shook hands. That's what you do. Your values are the foundation for work that is intellectually demanding, often physically exhausting, and endlessly rewarding. They include being dedicated to the continuous learning and humility that keeps you competent in a difficult and complex profession. It will lead you to be on the lookout for how to do your work more skillfully, on learnings from other disciplines. Over the years, my law practice has benefited from exposure to art, drama, literature, journalism, neuroscience, martial arts, surfing, science, philosophy, and religion. There are role models available in fiction, history, and biography, as well as family and across the profession. And likely you've heard about mentors and the value of mentors. They can be older or younger or in different fields. The values of independence and autonomy and integrity are also baked into the role of being a lawyer, and they will support your ability to make decisions when some try and divide your loyalties or appeal to your self-interest to have you cross ethical lines. Your values are there to protect you when you are tired or distracted, or when you're approached by someone who might want to dilute your excellence or manipulate you. And you may at some stage be required to speak truth to power, even where power does not want to hear the truth. Professor Nicholas Taleb talks about the process of becoming less fragile in the face of challenge. He talks about how, when he begins a new job, he always writes a letter of resignation and locks it in a desk drawer. It allows him to adjust for the worst case scenario, a mental write-off when things are going well, being ready to walk away. It's a given, you will face some difficulty and uncertainty, but you should also ask yourself today, how will you thrive? So let's jump for a moment from philosophy to poetry. Poets understand a lot about the world, and they are worth reading, particularly when you are confused or sad or tired, also when you are not. William Carlos Williams wrote, "It is difficult to get the news from poems, yet men die every day for lack of what is found there." Perhaps you can thrive from what you find in poetry. How can you make sure that you do not die a metaphorical death every day in a job or a place that starves your soul? I once asked a friend, I describe her as a force of nature, who is now in her 9th decade on this planet, about advice she gives to people about their work. She's been an artist since her teens. She was taught by one of the members of the group of 7, and her work is known nationally and internationally. Her paintings make my heart sing. She keeps a single sentence posted on the wall of her studio where her students can see it, and some of them have been known to change their lives after reading this. Don't get to be good at what you don't want to do. So if you want to do this work, it goes a long way. And if you can do it with people from whom you can learn and respect, this is huge. The rest is practice and time. And you do have to put in the time. Jobs are likely to change, but your attitude and your skills and the values on which these are built are lasting. 4 of my most rewarding positions didn't exist when I graduated from law school, and I suspect some of the ones you take on don't exist yet either. So the better question is, how will you express your values in your work? What interested you in law school? How will you benefit the community? And how will you grow as a person? Each of you will have your own answers today. And I'm asking you to consider these questions about what motivates you. What are the intrinsic rewards that you will get? I love how French author Antoine de Saint-Exupéry describes motivation to work. He wrote, "If you want to build a ship, don't drum up people to collect wood, and don't assign them tasks and work, but rather teach them to long for the endless immensity of the sea." So I'm asking you, what are you longing for? How will you express that in your work? Dr. Henry Cloud wrote a book called Integrity, The Courage to Meet the Demands of Reality, where he points out that a significant trait that predicts success is the ability to actively seek reality. What does this mean in practice? It means that the first hint of trouble, that gut feeling that you might have done something wrong, the inability to sleep, reaction from someone or a letter, you will inquire further and more deeply. You will look at it closely.